Hey guys, and welcome back to Battlefront Updates. Today I'm joined with Associate Design Director Dennis. Thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
The first question I wanted to ask was simply, what was the big things from the beta and alpha, the feedback from the community that you guys did changes based on?
So many things ranging from progression to gameplay to balance in general. I think a couple of big ones that we've already touched upon is buffing up the units that people felt were either priced too high in terms of the battle point cost, but also in terms of how much are you getting out of your battle points once you get it. So the LAAT gunship, for example, has been significantly buffed, as you've noticed now after playing. It's actually closer to the trailer now than it was before, which is good because I love the LAAT. Who doesn't love the LAAT? So that one is a big one. It's also buffing the flame trooper, the first order flame trooper, that people felt were it cost too much for the impact that it had. Now it should do significantly more damage and be able to withstand a lot more enemy fire, like especially with one of their abilities that temporarily buffs their hit points. It's actually quite lethal if you find yourself in a corridor with a flame trooper, because you will not be able to kill it in time and he will kill you really quickly. Outside of that, there's also just balance changes across just the battle point curve, if you will. Like we saw, for example, that people potentially, or players potentially, got access to the heroes a little bit too quickly, which made it so quite a few people were sort of holding back, sitting in the spawn screen for some time. So we've upped the battle point cost of heroes a little bit. We've also added more of a trickling effect to getting battle points, so that even if you're not doing really well, you'll still get battle points every single life that you're playing. So it's more of a sort of drip feed of battle points as you play, so that difference between a high earner of battle points and a very low high earner of battle points is slimmed down a little bit, just to make it a little bit more fair. And then tweaks to the amount of battle points that you're getting as playing as special things. So for example, we saw that the aerial class, the rocket jumper and the rocket troopers were potentially earning a little bit too much battle points, so that like the curve of it's totally fine if you want to continue playing. It's just a special thing and you're good enough every life. That's sort of the point of that system, but not to that extent where you were potentially had racked up enough to play as an aerial class for multiple lives. Even if you did poorly one life, you still had enough. So we've done a little bit of tweaking around that too. What else? So we released, we got a lot of feedback on the progression system, what you need to do in order to unlock new weapons and get new star cards and stuff like that. So we've done a revamp to make sure that you can do specific quests or milestones to get at least a common variation of a trooper card. Like a lot of that has been changed and implemented for launch. So you will be able to get at least a basic couple of new abilities for each of your trooper just by playing the game and completing certain objectives. The same with weapons, that they are tied to how much you're playing that class in order for you to unlock the new weapon. And then the weapon attachments connected to a weapon is also tied to using the weapon. So it's just it makes more sense in our eyes too. So that was one thing we're tweaking. Of course, we removed epic cards from the loot crates as part of that was always the intent. The intent was always for the highest possible, the most powerful things are only unlockable through gameplay. It's not something that you can just buy. What else? Is there anything else that you...
No, I think you covered most, even the crates that I was planning to ask about.
Sorry.
No, that's good. And but one thing I was curious about that was in the pre-alpha were the legendary cards that you did. How come you removed them altogether?
It didn't we've gone through a lot of iterations in terms of the progression system, how to make something where like you know me. I've been part of this franchise from the first time that we got it. Did the original, the Battlefront 1 that we at DICE, and also all the expansions tied to it. And sort of we've heard the feedback around, we want one community, we want like all the like new maps and whatever else might come post launch to be sort of free for everyone. So even if I'm playing on, you know, a not as popular platform in a, you know, not as large of a country or time zone, all that stuff, then I can still play all the new stuff with people in my region. So that was the number one high level goal that we needed to hit, and figuring out how to make base up progression and economy system around that has been, you know, we've tried a bunch of different things, and we're definitely not done yet. This is just the beginning of a journey that we will take together with our players, and you know, our ambition is for this to last for a long while. Like, I've seen a lot of Reddit posts where they said I just want them to not make another game, just build this game until it's perfect, right?
Yeah.
And we want to do the same thing. So
That's good, yeah.
and figuring out the balance of fairness towards the player and you know, allowing us to continue working on this game it's going to be an iterative process. I think we're at a good place now based on stuff we did in alpha that we then said, that's not going to work, and stuff we did then at beta, again, that's not going to work, we have to do it this way. And I'm sure there will be more stuff that like, we have to do this when we expose the entire game to our players. But we're in a pretty good seat, and we're all really excited about not just the launch, but actually continuing working on this game. We have a large team ready to go.
Yeah. And while we're talking about that, one thing that was an issue with last game was that patches sometimes took a very long time. I'm thinking like Lando bug. So do you have anything in place to make sure that yeah, for Guillaume. But do you have anything in place to make sure that if there are any really bad bugs, that you can fix them fairly fast?
Yeah, so we have a couple of systems in place. Our client patches will be a lot more frequent than before, not just for bugs, but you know, it's balance changes across everything. They won't be too frequent because our experiences from other games is that if you balance too quickly, then the metagame you never have a time to really learn how this new balance tweaks works before we tweak it again, and then you know, so we need to have a sort of a good steady progress of how often do we patch, but it's going to be as frequent as we can. And then also, what was the second part of the question? That was something else I wanted to mention.
No, it was just in general.
Oh, yeah, well, sorry. And also, this idea of kill switching things that aren't working on the fly when we see
you can
it.
do it like over server side.
Yeah, so things where if there's a Lando bug, no Lando for a while, but we work to fix him. Right?
Okay,
so,
that's good.
So we're set up that way too.
Yeah, and do you have any for those of us who play on PC? We had some issues with a lot of hackers. Do you have any new system or improvements to make sure that we don't have hackers that like stay alive for months, basically?
Yeah, so that one is tricky. We're not announcing anything like new, big, and game-changing because I'm not sure if that's the right way to combat these problems. But we're aware of not only like issues in Battlefront 1, but also across other DICE titles and Battlefield and other EA titles, like how this is just a studio and to an extent company-wide movement towards making it fair for everyone and removing cheaters. So a lot of there's a lot of effort being made into improving our systems constantly. You know, it's sort of like an antivirus program. You don't gonna be like, we did this, you know, but it's going to be something that we're always continuing to improve and staying with the curves to get on top of everything.
Right, and another thing that a lot of people have discussed, obviously from the beta and alpha, is the squad system and the new system that I noticed, the spawn wave. I'm not sure what you call it exactly, but maybe you can explain how it works and about what your philosophy around squad system is.
Sure. So right now in our game you spawn in a group of up to 4 in a spawn wave, and then you spawn in together. Now what we added since the beta was it's sort of a spawn wave bar, or you know, like it is an on fire meter, if you will, where if you have a very good life, or if you're playing with a very successful spawn wave, then you see this little meter that can fill up. Once it's filled up, you're actually getting double the amount of battle points for as long as you play. Everyone who's still alive in that spawn wave will get that bonus. So in order to fill that bar, you can almost do anything positive, sort of like battle points. As long as you do something semi-positive, you're going to get a battle point for this. And it's the same philosophy there. And so, for example, if we wanted to improve on situations where, for example, maybe you're spawning as a normal heavy trooper, but someone else in the spawn wave becomes Darth Vader, and so like that's really cool. That feels cool to be part of the spawn wave with Darth Vader. But once you spawned in, it's like, what now? You know, like what benefits do I get? Well, Darth Vader is like, as long as he's semi-competent, is going to be a lot more efficient in filling up the bar. So if, for example, instead you choose to become an officer when you see that Darth Vader is joining in, then maybe you follow Darth Vader around and you try to buff him with your battle command and all that stuff. So Darth Vader will stay alive. You all get a lot of battle points because you managed to fill up the bar real quickly by supporting Darth Vader, and then you all sort of reap the benefits and get a lot of battle points. So next time around, maybe you can become Darth Vader because you played with him during this round. So that's sort of the intent behind it. We feel it feels really cool when you play. You get an added incentive of playing together. We tried a bunch of things before that, such as staying together. You get quicker cooldowns like in Battlefront 1, or you get more battle points by staying close to each other. But we felt like we have such a breadth of characters that you can play now, whether that's a hero or a vehicle or a starfighter or all that. So if we're saying no, you need to stay together in order to get this, then well, I'm flying as a TIE fighter, like why am I not helping out? Well, we wanted you to help out too. We want everyone to feel like they can contribute. Even if you're a specialist who's sniping from far away, then am I not helping out? I'm killing people next to my squad. Why am I not getting? So a lot of those challenges where we just needed to do something different, where proximity is not the number one thing, although it certainly helps, but it's more about staying alive and playing together. And if you manage to stay alive for a good life, chances are you'll get a lot of battle points for doing so.
So, yeah, one thing I noticed, just a quick little thing in the career page right now, there's you can see the challenges, but there are no stats at all. Is there any way to see your stats, like what's your win ratio, what's the things that were available in the last game, or is that something you decided to keep out of the game?
It's definitely something that we want to have. We know players do care about that stuff. It's just there's a number of priority calls that needed to be made in order to get this for launch, but we totally want to get like your stats back in so that you can see how you're doing. We'll try to get that as soon as possible.
All right. And one thing obviously a lot of people in the community ask about is visual customization. And as far as I could tell, there was no infantry customization, but there are a bunch of hero skins right now.
Well, I wouldn't say a bunch. There's a few,
okay.
hero skins available. We know it's a big deal, and we'll have a lot more info on character customization in general really soon. It's, yeah, unfortunately, it's one of those things where when we release it, we need to make it right.
Yeah. Another thing has been
a helmetless stormtroopers.
Okay, like that is good. You learned from the first game, I guess.
Well, just in general, figure out what I'm hoping that we can get our community to really embrace with us is this idea of a living world, something where a living game where every week that you log in, you might have something fun to do, right? And that's going to be part of where we launch. Right now is going to be significantly different compared to where we will be in a year, and it's going to be different this time around. So we'll all of that, features that are missing, things that we want, and things that we will want to change, we're going to make those calls, and we're going to make them a lot faster than before, just because of the patch turnaround. So I think it's going to be exciting, but it will take some getting used to for all of us.
Alright, and another thing I want to talk about was cross-era heroes, because there's obviously been a lot of people who don't care, a lot of people who really don't like it, but I thought you had a pretty good solution for it now. I guess you could explain a little bit about the cost of the heroes and so on.
Yeah, so in general in our game, like a class is always going to be sort of accurate to the planet that it shows up on. That's sort of it. A class will change depending on where you're playing. So an assault can be a stormtrooper, a rebel trooper, and also a clone trooper and a droid. You know, like because a class is wide that way. Now for characters that you unlock, such as like all the heroes, for example, they are yours when you get them, and you can deploy them anywhere. That's sort of our mantra around how do we make this work? How do we make sure that if you really like playing Darth Maul, who's uniquely sort of, it's a unique gameplay experience compared to playing Darth Vader, for example. How can we make sure that you can play as much Darth Maul as you'd like? And that was sort of our solution. The same goes for weapons that you can unlock for your class. Some of those weapons are technically from a different era, although they can show up in either sometimes because they're weapons and they evolve, and you know, like it's a little iffy. But some of them are totally stuff that were invented in Force Awakens, for example. Once you unlock that, it is sort of up to you to equip it on. You unlock it for your class. It's up to you where you wanna, if you wanna stay sort of appropriate, or if you'd like to. So I really like this gun, and it's my gun in a shooter, and I want to be able to use my gun wherever I go. Then you can, but the default weapon of the class for each era and planet will be different.
Okay.
But sort of at the same time, we're all Star Wars fans at heart. We all want this authentic experience that still see people getting blown up a lot more than in the movies, right? But we still want it to feel authentic, and so. If you decide that I actually want to stay authentic, then the battle points are adjusted for each hero depending on if it's appropriate or not. Like you get a lore bonus to your battle points depending on if you're staying true to lore or not. So Darth Maul will be cheaper to play in the prequels, but much more expensive to play in Force Awakens, for example.
One very specific thing. When we played, I was kind of hesitant that this map was even going to be in the game after the trailers, but then I noticed the Naboo Heroes versus Villains map, and that was really cool. You could throw people down and they died. But is that only Heroes versus Villains map, or is that also for like Strike and such?
It is only Heroes versus Villains. The reason I'm hesitating because I know we played around with different variations of it, but no, it's only Heroes versus Villains. Like we felt it was too iconic as like, where would you ever fight Darth Maul? Well, there is where you would fight Darth Maul. So yes, it is only a Heroes versus Villains map for now.
Okay. Yeah, I think that was it. Well, like a final thing, what was the hardest thing for you, do you think, in this game to balance or create? What was the thing that you felt like you went back and forth between the different options, and it was just really hard to decide on the best? Like cross eras always seems to be one big discussion, but do you have this?
Like I think I mentioned that one before. That was figuring out this need for the player desire to play my favorite thing, my favorite gun, my favorite hero, what is the thing that makes you enjoy the game the most? Which is, I love my gun and I want to play my gun all the time. Or I love this hero, I never want to play anything else other than this hero. Like I always want to build up my battle point and become this guy. That's when I'm the best in this game, and I really want to become the best in this game. That desire is really strong, as I'm sure you'll agree, versus this desire of I love Star Wars, I know Star Wars, and sometimes things stand out to me that aren't quite right. Like, so how can we balance that in a nice way? So it actually goes back to like stuff from the previous game too, where for example, I really want to customize my stormtrooper, but I don't want to be able to remove my helmet. But I really want to customize it. But then, so like, okay, well, we need to figure out a good way, a good mix, a good balance, and solution there was to introduce pauldrons of different colors, which was like, okay, well, this is pretty good, right? And same came from what is the best gadget in Battlefront 1, obviously the jump pack, because everyone we're using all the time. But then if you're true to Star Wars and you know your lore, then you'll know that not everyone has a jump pack in Star Wars. What's up with this? Stormtroopers with jump packs, like that was just until Rebels came out, and then they had it. But but a lot of that stuff where balancing the gameplay need of like, this is the most fun versus what is the most Star Wars. I think though whenever we end up in those situations, that's usually where we have to make tough calls. But we'll see how it's received. We'll see, and then we'll adjust from there.
Yeah. Right. Thank you very much for the interview.
Thank you.